Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto 2 Blue Vortex manga chapter review. This one's going to be for chapter 6, which is called 3 Years. So overall I enjoyed the chapter, but I think it's fair to say compared to maybe the last two, this one wasn't as kind of bombastic or like big when it came to the reveals. It was a lot more focused on, okay, we need to kind of set up this plot thread. We need to just kind of have the characters just talk a little bit about things. Some of it is kind of that kind of partial recap thing where like I think we as the audience know, but like this character has to tell that character this. So there's maybe quite a few scenes where it felt like, okay, I understand why this needs to happen, but we already sort of know that, sort of just, okay, move along, get to the point. There's definitely some stuff here, some pretty good stuff here. I don't know if there's as much big speculation points about this chapter coming out of it as there has been for previous chapters. But it's definitely one of those ones where I think, like, let's get into it here and see what there is to discuss. So, yeah, on the cover page we have Shikamaru, which is fitting for the title. The whole 3 years thing is directly about him. And he ultimately has probably like the biggest move in terms of like suspicions from last chapter. Like, okay, he was listening to Amado kind of see through kind of the illusion. And we're like, okay, what's he going to do with that? And it seems like this is this kind of final step to push Shikamaru over the edge to now doubting his own memories himself. So that's what this is about. But let's get into the chapter here. So we start off, and surprisingly, first panel here, we have Homura and Koharu, the village elders who are still alive. I believe this is the first time we've seen them in the Boruto era, but I might be misremembering something. So either way, it's these two talking with Shikamaru as sort of like the leadership structure of the village. And basically they represent, as they've always represented, the kind of old school kind of mentality. They're kind of meant to be the obstacles in the way, where like typically the Hokage actually wants to do something different that goes against the rules typically, and they have to like convince the village elders that this is actually the best way to do it. So they of course just want Boruto eliminated. That's the easiest way to do that. They bring up like the budget, the existence of the village is in danger if you don't do things in the kind of expected way by just eliminating Boruto. Shikamaru of course is kind of like, hey, sure, but Code was only driven off because Boruto intervened on kind of behalf of the village and he hasn't appeared since. I think there's more to it. So he goes to leave, but then Koharu says, it's been 3 years, the period you yourself designated, basically accept finally, officially, the title of Lord 8th, become the 8th Hokage. You're weakening our position, not just with the Land of Fire, but with other villages as well, by basically the Hidden Leaf Village, Konoha not having a full-on Hokage, because his official title is, I suppose, interim Hokage. And this brings up this interesting idea of why hasn't Shikamaru taken the role officially? Why did he set up this kind of, I'll be the interim Hokage for 3 years. Like, what's he waiting for? That's interesting. It shows this sense of like, oh, did he already have doubts like as soon as the switch happened? And this is why something huge like this he wasn't willing to commit to initially. And it's like, okay, the planner Shikamaru that we all know and love is still here. It's just he's been waiting for a lot of elements to come together to, I suppose, tell everyone that actually I have some suspicions. So he goes back to his office. Ino comes in. He has asked her to deliver some data here. It's mission logs from a long time ago. And pretty much she just leaves. And basically she walks out the door, stops, and then communicates, like mind transfer kind of style, initiates the kind of in your head communication with Shikamaru, being like, the log was just an excuse. What's going on here? Like, you want to have basically off the books communications, don't you? And that's what he says. He doesn't want the sensory unit, Ada, Kawaki, Amado, anyone else listening in on what they have to talk about here. So Ino points out that, these kind of like secret conversations are not allowed by the regulations, but he's like, just do it, please. And so Ino's like, what do you want me to do? So we'll come back to that in just a second. This is kind of like I said, the Shikamaru plot. But we cut down over to Kawaki, who is in the house with Ada and Demon. So this is Ada catching Kawaki up to speed on what's going on with basically the new villains, the Divine Tree characters who've kind of like evolved. So he says 10 tails that have developed self-awareness. And she says, that's right, they are evolving. I don't know how exactly this happened, but it's a completely different being than they normally would be. He asks about Code. I thought he was controlling them. She just says, Code has ran off somewhere. They're now out of his league anyway. They're monsters. Plus, troubling thing is that they're not just after Otsutsuki, like you and Boruto. For whatever reason, they want to kill 7th Hokage Uzumaki Naruto as well. So this is the big thing we were waiting for here. She overheard this, that this is one of their goals. Is one of them wants to hunt down Naruto. That's their target. And she is now relaying that to Kawaki, and this brings up the natural plot point you would expect. It is this secret among most people that like they don't know that Naruto isn't dead. Only a few characters are aware that actually Naruto's still alive, being held in a different dimension. And so this threatens some of Kawaki's plans. This kind of threatens the whole illusion in a way, because this is a huge thing kind of as part of that. But interestingly, Ada's like, oh yeah, Naruto's been targeted, and me as well. And she's obviously saying this, and especially with the way the scene goes, she's saying this with the expectation that she wants to see Kawaki show some level of concern for her, just to kind of judge if he cares about her, like, at all. But he's just like, why Lord 7th? What exactly are they after? And she's just like, oh, that I can't tell yet. And he just says, yeah, whatever these things are, I'll get rid of them. Demon speaks up and says that Boruto, Sasuke, and us, basically, are the only ones who know that the Hokage is alive. No one will believe those two because they're criminals. But if an army basically comes here looking for the Hokage, people are going to figure it out. Because if the villains are convinced that Naruto is actually still alive, you are going to have some hard questions to answer. Like, are you prepared for that, basically? And Demon's just like, yeah, not that I really care about what happens to you, unlike Big Sis. And she's just like, don't say such things. And Kawaki just leaves, and she's like, well, where are you going? Leave me alone, spy on me if you want. And this whole scene, I think, is very much meant to get across the idea of, this is the person who Ada wants the relationship with. And she views it as he is acting very differently than he usually does. This is what was addressed at the very end of original Boruto and stuff like that. That she obviously sees something in Kawaki before all this went down that she really, really loves, basically. And him just trying to keep this ruse up, keep the switch up, his vengeance going after the Ototsukis, it seems to have transformed him here into someone that isn't the person that she really likes. And so she wants to see Kawaki change, and that's the whole discussion that Boruto and Ada had, was that she will subtly support Boruto because she wants him to kind of reverse the situation so that hopefully Kawaki can go back to the way he once was. But anyway, Kawaki walks out and Mitski is waiting there. And he's like, of course, as expected, completely dismissive of Mitski. You're all so annoying. Mitski just says, it's my job to guard you and Ada. Take it up with the Hokage otherwise. And he's just like, don't shift the blame. And he calls him you hangnail. But we do switch at this point back to Boruto. So this is from the kind of cliffhanger from the previous chapter. We had the big hug moment with Sarada and Boruto, and we see the kind of aftermath of that. We do see a blush moment on the end of one of the pages, which is definitely a confirmation that there's at least some sort of romantic tension to a certain degree here, interpretation of the scenes. And she even says in her head, I didn't mean to throw myself at him like that, but there's so much that needs to be addressed. Sumire kind of breaks the little bit of kind of like tension here a little bit, and it's just like, hey, it's been 3 years. I'm glad you look well. And he's just like, hey, ditto to you, class rep. And he even says, same for you, Sarada. I never thought you'd jump at me like that. And she just says how worried she's actually been. He's happy to see that both of them are okay. He points out that he can be here because he has erased his chakra signature. He won't be detected by anyone except Kawaki. So he does say he doesn't have much time. So it's an interesting one, because I thought my prediction was that Boruto saying he's home at the end of the last chapter would have been, it'll prompt the discussion and build to eventually Boruto is allowed to effectively stay in the village, and it's just this very tense situation, but they will all be working together. The direction they go here is that actually, he's going to be chased out of the village again, and we'll see how exactly this is all going to work. But anyway, the reason he reveals why he has come back here, despite knowing that he will be targeted and chased out again, is that he wanted to make sure to tell Sarada about what happened to Sasuke. And she's like, what happened? Master Sasuke was absorbed by 10 Tails. And this is where we cut over to Kawaki sensing Boruto, and interestingly what we get is, Kawaki senses Boruto. Mitski then realizes, oh, you've sensed him. And Kawaki says as much, and immediately Mitski acts, and it's just focuses, a snake comes out of his wrist, and we cut. So Mitski's about to do something. We'll see what exactly that is. Because you can definitely interpret it as like, oh, is he just getting prepared to attack Boruto? But that's not what happens, in an interesting kind of turn. But anyway, back to Sarada and Boruto talking. Absorbed, you mean he's been turned into a tree? Yes, he sacrificed himself to let me escape. It's my fault he got taken down. Sumire points out a lot of villagers were attacked by the claw grimes. They became trees too. Why is this happening? And so Boruto reveals, of course, some of his information that he has. He knows quite a bit about this. The fundamental purpose of 10 Tails has always been to devour chakra of any kind instinctually, and then to eventually devour an Otsutsuki whose chakra transforms that 10 Tails into a divine tree. That's how it's supposed to go. I appreciate this explanation here, because it does make that clarification of that just consuming energy, like basically everything, is part of it, and then the Otsutsuki part is what directly initiates the divine tree forming and eventually the chakra fruit. But he points out then, in this case, for whatever reason, they've already started evolving into divine trees, and he'll say something about this in a page or two as well, but he leaves it at that kind of for now. Mostly what we've known already, but it's interesting to see the way they frame the explanation in this case. But anyway, from there we have the kind of sensory team contacting Lord 8th, of course, Shikamaru. Mitski wants to talk to Shikamaru. So what is it? And he points out, Boruto's here somewhere in the village. Kawaki picked it up just now. Shikamaru's like, oh, he didn't trip the sensory net. Oh, so that must mean he can erase his chakra signature now, just like Kawaki. Mitski points out he's got to be towards the south. Could you ask Ada to pinpoint his exact location? And Shikamaru's like, wait, where's Kawaki? Well, why are you asking me this? And Mitski says, I'll head to where Boruto is. Remember, Boruto can detect Kawaki's aura too. Kawaki isn't suited for pursuing Boruto. He'd be alerted as soon as Kawaki got near. And we see visually at this point, it cuts to Kawaki kind of unconscious or sleeping on the ground, and the snake kind of over the top here. Kawaki has been bitten. So Mitski has managed to get the kind of sneak attack on Kawaki and just temporarily take him out of the picture. I get the impression Mitski's having to act quick here to get the edge here over Kawaki so he can be the one to confront Boruto, which I think speaks to the idea of there's much more going on here than simply, well, Mitski interprets Boruto as being Kawaki, and so he's angry at him and wants to pursue him. Based on previous stuff with Mitski in the series, we know he's having doubts. because Kawaki is not acting like Boruto would, and so he is very confused about that situation. They very close, best friends, and Kawaki is just basically ignoring Mitski. So it's that kind of whole idea. Mitski wants to figure things out, and given that this is also the chapter where we're kind of doing that with Shikamaru as well, we did it with Amado in the last chapter, and there's other characters along the way as well. We're slowly but surely having more and more characters question their reality, and that's an important thing as well. But yeah, we see what Shikamaru's decision is going to be. But anyway, we cut back to the Sarada, Sumire, Boruto discussion. What do you mean by they've already started evolving? And he just says that I don't know exactly basically what happened here, but there's a strong possibility that Code's chakra is affecting them via claw grime. And he points out that Code might not be an Otsutsuki, but he's got a karma that came from Ishiki, which is a lump of Otsutsuki essence. So it having some effect wouldn't be a surprise, which I think makes a whole lot of sense. That they are not going to target Code because he can't be the thing that activates like the Divine Tree transformation. But very clearly they're highlighting here that, well, you basically added claw marks to the Ten Tails. You put an Otsutsuki power into these claw grimes, into parts of the Ten Tails. You have done some sort of a weird thing where you've like upgraded them in a way that they would, I suppose, eventually get to via other means. Like you've affected the way that they kind of grow. You don't realize what you've done, because again, claw grime is the claw marks are a shinjutsu, which is a god, or was it a divine jutsu, which is basically a full-on Otsutsuki jutsu. So I think you can sort of see the idea that they're going for here with that. So yeah, they just point out, oh, karma, that's interesting. But anyway, at this point, while Sumire is thinking this all through, Boruto is contacted in his head again by Shikamaru through Ino. So this is what Shikamaru was asking Ino to do. I'm using mind transfer jutsu. Answer without speaking aloud. Don't change your expression. So he says, the sensory unit is not involved. Just me and Ino making this happen. This will not be logged. I'm on your side is basically what he's trying to say here. They have a little bit of back and forth here about, oh, I heard you've become the Hokage. He does point out that, yeah, people call me Lord 8th, but I'm not officially the Hokage. I'm only the interim Hokage. Anyway, quit arguing and get out of there. You're about to have company. And boom, we get a snake wrapping itself around Boruto as he's sitting next to Sarada and Sumire. And we get a very cool, quick action scene here as the snake goes to bite Boruto. I suppose maybe in the same way that this is, I suppose, effectively what he did to Kawaki. It's about to bite Boruto. Well, Boruto acts very quickly. Even though his hands are kind of trapped, it seems like what he does is he does a very subtle wind-style jutsu to shoot his sword out of its holder. So the sword flies off into the distance, and then he puts his hands together and just does the flying Raijin jutsu towards the sword, which is obviously marked. Amazing escape here, very cool. I love the subtle jutsu, sending the sword out. It's a very nice escape maneuver here. But anyway, he's on the run here. Mitski shows up. He's in kind of full-on Snake Sage mode at this point, and he's like, we meet again, Boruto. I've been waiting for this moment. Sarada tries to talk Mitski down, but Mitski just says, I don't know what lies he's fed you, but move aside, Sarada. I can't control my strength. So Mitski attacks with his kind of Sage mode kind of snakes. Boruto counters with purple lightning on his sword. He basically imbues his sword with purple lightning and slices through them. So purple lightning is something that he has, which is a very cool maneuver. Mitski counters with a striking shadow snake assault. Boruto at this point kind of leaps off the ground, high into the air, avoiding the ground just erupting with snakes. And Mitski is of course surprised by this like just massive leap into the air. While he's in midair, he talks to Sarada and is like, hey, Sarada, I swear to rescue Master Sasuke and everyone else who was turned into trees, as well as ... He stares down at Sarada and Sumire. They focus in on Boruto's eye ... We focus on Sarada's eye, nothing. And then we cut back to Boruto and he just says, no, never mind, I'll be back. And he just shoots off. Sarada watches him go and she's just like, Boruto. Sumire is like, you know, what just happened here? And Mitski has to watch this as well. But we get the sort of reveal that, I guess what happens here with Mitski is this reveal that, of course, a snake has been planted on Boruto. So Mitski is tracking Boruto as he escapes at this point, but it's only found out at the end of the chapter. So, yeah, from there we have Boruto just trying to get distance away from the village. It's eventually revealed that, yeah, he's trying to get out of range of Kawaki being able to sense him, basically. So, Boruto just points out, like, if you wanted to talk to me, you could have stopped Mitski from attacking me in the first place. But again, Shikamaru just highlights that basically everyone else wants to eliminate you. There's only so much I can do when I'm going against the will of everyone else. So he just says, like, while I can't openly aid you, there are some things I can do support you in my own way. And I want your help. And then the big thing is, he says, hear me out. You're actually Uzumaki Boruto, aren't you? And Boruto's like, but Ino is like facilitating this conversation, and even she's like, wait, what? You believe this stuff that's being said? But he does acknowledge that, I apologize because though I say that, I'm having trouble accepting the notion myself. It didn't even occur to me until Amado brought it up that my own memories might be fabricated. And Ino's like, wait, you believe this? But things started falling into place. Things make sense when you flip your position and Kawaki's. And again, Ino is just still like, no, surely not. Like, she isn't able to fully follow Shikamaru and believe this herself. But Shikamaru through seeing Amado make this connection is now locked in. Like, he's able to properly doubt what's happening here. So he says, tell me the truth, Boruto. Boruto lands at this point, and this is where we get the whole range thing. I think I should be out beyond Kawaki's range now. How far does the mind transfer jutsu reach? He says for Ino, it's 100 kilometers around the village. Why? And Boruto just says, I hate to break this off, but I've got a loose end to tie up. This is the reveal that there's a snake basically in hidden on Boruto. So Mitski has been tracking him. And yeah, Mitski arrives, again, still in the kind of snake sage form, charges, and Boruto just says, sorry, but I'm going to have to get a little rough with you, Mitski. So they're actually, it seems like, going to have a proper fight. And I suppose probably more important than the fight is, will the talk that they have be able to plant the true seed of doubt that will properly make Mitski question what's going on here? And I'm guessing it will. That Boruto will show more care towards Mitski than Kawaki ever has in the last few years. And this will, because Boruto is so important to Mitski, he is his son. You know, Mitski is the moon to the sun that is Boruto. That's the connection that they're kind of going for here. He will surely notice that about Boruto based on specific things that Boruto says to him. And that will be a very interesting one to see kind of exactly what they're doing here. Because otherwise it feels like, okay, if they're going to fight, based on the presentation, it seems like Boruto is next level here. Mitski is obviously going to be a challenge to some degree because Mitski has to have leveled up as well, but it seems like Boruto is being positioned as being absolutely top tier. He should have too many tricks in the bag to face Mitski with. So what's going to happen here? They're obviously acknowledging that, like, I'm going to have to, like, hit you here, basically. So an attack is going to land on Mitski, I guess. That will probably stop the fight, and they'll probably have some sort of a conversation, which should lead to some character stuff for Mitski, and hopefully the same level of doubt that Amado Shikamaru have. he'll begin to have as well. Otherwise, like, what exactly are we doing here? Like, we're obviously setting up the idea that once he deals with Mitski and he can properly start the conversation with Shikamaru again, Shikamaru is going to reveal what his plan is to, like, assist Boruto kind of from the shadows. So is Boruto still going to be on the outside of the village, and what Shikamaru will give reports to Boruto on what's happening in the village? I'm a little bit kind of confused about that. That's where I'm assuming by the end of this volume, so this is chapter 6, the second chapter of volume 2 of Two Blue Vortex, the next 2 chapters probably should get us to a point where we at least know, I guess, what the status quo of the series is in terms of, like, are we allied? Is Boruto going to be allowed to stay in or around the village? What exactly is happening here? Otherwise, like, the main talking points from the chapter are definitely, of course, Shikamaru now, in the same way as Amado, having a true doubt about the whole switcheroo. The big one that probably needs to get talked about, but it's also overly vague, is the whole I'll rescue Master Sasuke and everyone else who's turned into the tree, as well as looks at Sarada. Some sort of communication happens between them as they stare at each other, and we move on. This is kind of a weird one because it's like, what's happening here? And the thing that I would maybe lean towards is, what have we not done? What have we not tackled with Boruto the whole time so far in Two Blue Vortex? We have not brought up Momoshiki, who is still somewhere inside Boruto. Now, we know the massive threat of Momoshiki is gone, in that, as far as we're aware, as far as we were told, because of the way Momoshiki healed Boruto, he basically had to give up any chance of permanently taking over Boruto's body and becoming him, basically. But it seems like he still can in specific instances, like, say, if Boruto ever was to get, like, really, really badly kind of beaten up and really kind of lose a lot of his strength, then it seems like Momoshiki should be able to kind of come out. And I'm wondering if that's kind of where we're going here. We're addressing that whole idea of Momoshiki's power is to be able to sense the future in at least vague details, not knowing the full picture of how this gets to this, but he can see something into the future. Has somehow Boruto seen into the future, and it relates to Sarada, that he sees something having happened to Sarada, and he was maybe about to say something like, I will save you from your fate, but he's kind of like, wait, that would require a lot of explanation. I don't even know what to make of it myself. What's going on? Otherwise, like, surely it's not as simple as, like, I will rescue everyone else as well as protect you? Is it that? I'm not really sure. Either way, there's something more that he has to say to Sarada and or Sumire, but I think Sarada, of course, was the focus within the scene, so that is an interesting one. Otherwise, I'm guessing, you know, like, Ino overheard, like, Shikamaru's kind of awakening to the truth. What will it take for her to properly, move over the edge? Because, of course, this is one of her main team members here, Shikamaru. She surely respects him enough, especially given that his intelligence is one of his main traits, that is this enough of a thing to awaken Ino to the truth? Like, that'll be an interesting, just to see the dominoes begin to fall on, this will lead to this character properly questioning things, this will lead to that character, and how quickly is all of a sudden everyone going to question? Because that's the other point with Kawaki and the whole Demon Ada scene, is that Demon's kind of like, yeah, if the guy who's after Naruto comes to the village looking for Naruto, and he says that out loud, everyone's going to know you lied. How are you going to deal with that? That they're once again bringing up the idea of the weight of this web of lies that Kawaki has kind of said to everyone, trying to keep this kind of false reality up. And, like, in all of this, like, we still don't know how exactly we reverse this. Like, can Kawaki just go over to Ada and, like, does he have to be the one to reverse this on his own? Is that what we're kind of building towards? That the character development that kind of Ada and Boruto probably want from Kawaki, that has to happen first, and then because this was his will through Ada's power making it happen, he has to be the one to reverse it. So that's maybe a part of the theory here. Otherwise, like, just from the very start of the chapter, yes, seeing the village elders again was kind of an interesting one, but maybe not the most impactful chapter, but certainly a kind of a nice role player chapter, as just that sort of second of 4 chapters in a volume, moving the plot into the right direction. It certainly makes the next chapter seem quite exciting in that we're going to get Boruto versus Mitski, and hopefully some Mitski development and more, because I guess we'll come back to the Shikamaru conversation and see where that goes. So that's all I'm going to say about it here. As ever, I will have a discussion video going over this chapter a little bit more, some speculation ahead of the next chapter, probably 2 weeks after this, maybe 3 weeks, just a little bit before the chapter comes out, about kind of halfway between the gap. But yes, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on chapter 6 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. Otherwise, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.